2008, Lindsay and I were married. And we made a few vows on that day, but one of the vows was that if we ever came to a Y in the road, we would take the road less traveled. Metaphorically speaking, we weren't looking to get lost or anything like that, but we wanted adventure in our life. Now, Lindsay was already an adventurer. She had been to 30 countries before she was 27 years old. She had seen a lot of the world. In fact, she lived in England and Africa for extended periods of time, working with orphans as a teacher and youth in lots of different capacities, but it was very beautiful what she was doing. I was not an adventurer. When the rubber met the road, it was met with trepidation and fear that there might be nails on that road, or there might be curbs that need to get checked, or other road debris. So maybe just stay in the garage where I feel safe and comfortable and cozy. Lindsay would throw caution to the wind. I would caution Lindsay about how windy it was outside, and she might want to hold on to her hat, or maybe better not even go outside at all, because it's just safer that way. But no, we eventually got married, and we were dedicated to adventure. And I assured her that I would also be an adventurer alongside her. She did have some fears, though. Even though she was so adventurous, she had fears of heights and snakes and death. But it was primarily marrying me that was her fear, because I was possibly going to keep her stagnant. I might keep her home, I might be too safe for her, and she wanted to see another 165 countries that were not marked up on her list. And she wanted to see the US and Canada and everywhere else that she had not been to yet. But we committed, and we moved forward in our marriage. Now, fast forward 2 years, and we're getting a little bit more stable. I have a good job now. I'm in American Airlines at the time, and I was a graphic designer, and I was designing those little seat-back magazines that you would read that don't exist anymore. And she had a great job at the local university. But we were getting the itch. 2 years into marriage, and we were starting to remember that vow of adventure that we were not really pursuing. So we started thinking about what could we do, and we came up with a big idea. The most epic road trip either one of us had ever been on. So we thought, well, we got good jobs, maybe we shouldn't do this, but we said, let's lay out a literal map and start thinking about it. So we did, one day. Ingredient number one for a good road trip, by the way, is a good route. We literally took pins and marked off the most beautiful places we could ever imagine going to in the US and Canada. And that list became very big, and that map was very wide. Ingredient number two is you have to have a pretty amazing adventure mobile, right? Are you gonna go in your little Nissan Maxima? No. We started brainstorming, and we came up with the perfect thing. And we found it in Phoenix, Arizona. It was a 1972 VW bus, Westville. It was seafoam green on the bottom, pearl white on the top. We added a little roof rack to it to really finish it out. My dad and I flew out there one way to pick it up, and we drove it back to Texas where we were living. It was beautiful. The third ingredient we needed, not everybody needs this for a road trip, but for us it was very important, was a purpose. Now, if we were gonna potentially leave our good jobs to drive around, I wanted there to be something more than just seeing beautiful sights. So we started brainstorming, and we paired the idea of beautiful places with beautiful people. Lindsay had been working with some incredible ministries and organizations, nonprofits overseas, and we thought, what if we were to track that amazing journey and look for other people who have risked it all, who had left great jobs in order to love their neighbor well. Neighbors that are right next door, neighbors that are across the world. And we document their stories. We tell their stories, we interview them, we write about them, we photograph them, and we keep a website or blog where we tell their stories and get other people to get involved as well. We thought, this could be cool. We got very excited about this. We called it, after the great Jack Kerouac, instead of On the Road, we became On the Good Road. .com. And we even named their bus Lulu. And all the parts were there, all the pieces were there. All we had to do was leave our jobs. And we did it. We finally quit our jobs and we felt free. This was in May of 2010. Now, we started telling our friends and family about this epic journey we were going on, and most people were like, that's incredible, I want to do that too. How do I do that too? Except that when you tell people stories like this, they also can tend to go in the other direction. Like, we got a lot of, what kind of gun are you going to buy? What? Gun? Yeah, people are going to come and try to rob you in the middle of the night when you're sleeping in your bus on the side of the road. We said, we're not getting a gun. And we'll figure that out as we go. And my father-in-law, who was a major adventurer, he's still an adventurer today, but he's like, Darren, this is 2010. There's a recession going on. You guys are going to quit your jobs, good jobs, to go live in a van down by the river and travel around. What are you going to do when you get back? There's not going to be jobs left. That's a good point, Nick. Good point. Maybe. We'll think about that. And then the people who found out that we were driving a VW bus over major mountain passes through Colorado and Canada, Rockies, and said, are you serious? They started listing off, these are people who knew buses, and they started listing off all of the problems, how slow they would go, and how they guzzled gas, the expensive gas, because they needed the high-octane stuff, and how there's no mechanics left that work on air-cooled VW buses these days, and there's no parts. It's really hard to find parts, and all the long list of things. Oh, and also, that it's shaped like a giant loaf of bread on wheels. And the wind would hit you so hard on the side. That was true. But we decided to throw that caution to the wind, both of us this time as a couple. And we hit the road in early June. We started out from Denton, Texas. We traveled to Amarillo and then up to Albuquerque. Now, if you've ever driven from Dallas, Denton to Albuquerque, or to Amarillo, you know that it's all very flat. And as soon as you leave out Amarillo and start heading to Albuquerque, it goes up, 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 up for about 300 miles until you descend down into Albuquerque at the very end. We started driving that morning. It was our first week, and we were going about 55 miles an hour in an 80-mile-an-hour zone, and I was flooring it, pedal to the metal. Eventually, that pedal to the metal melted the engine, and we blew half of the engine, and now we were down to 2 cylinders instead of the 4, and now we were going 20 miles an hour on the shoulder of the road, puttering along, trying to make it to the top of this mountain pass. This is week number 1 of a very long trip. What were we thinking? This is why people don't take the road less traveled. They take the one that everybody travels. They take the normal vehicles, like that Nissan Maxima that would have good gas mileage. Anyway. We eventually got to the top of that, and we coasted down, and Lindsay is frantically searching for any VW bus mechanic in Albuquerque who can work on an air-cooled machine, and she finds the one. And we coast into it. We find out that it's going to be a whole week, that we've got to sit there and wait for the parts to get ordered, wait for the machine to get fixed, everything. And we just started looking for other vehicles. We thought, this is ridiculous. We're throwing it all away, and we're getting a practical vehicle. And then we just said, no, hold on. We're on an epic adventure. We've got to live this epic adventure, and we're going to take it all, the good, the bad, everything. So we got it fixed, and we got back on the road. Now, we talk about the wind and throwing caution to the wind. The wind is important when you're driving. It actually can help you and serve you, or it can hurt you, and it can be against you. It just depends on the day. The wind took us into some really challenging spaces. Besides the regular breakdowns of the bus that we had to try to fix, there would be times, I remember going from Colorado to Las Vegas, and the wind was just pounding us. It was 108 degrees outside. By the way, no air conditioning, no heat in this bus. 108 degrees. It's pounding against the side of us, and I'm white knuckling it the whole time. But we finally make it in to Las Vegas to find out that we've lost half of the luggage that we had on top of the bus somewhere hundreds of miles back. All of Lindsay's clothes were gone. So we started going to secondhand stores trying to find anything we could to start reclothing her. And all of those things that were listed by our friends that knew VW buses also came true. It was a very hard vehicle to drive in many ways, and we would find ourselves having trouble finding a place to sleep at night that was legal to park, and we would have trouble finding showers at night for many days at a time. And probably our biggest challenge was we were 2 years into marriage. Lindsay was our navigator, I was the driver. She would tell me where to turn. I would miss the turn almost every single time because I'm distracted by everything around me. And so navigating our early marriage while navigating the country and the world that we were in was a big challenge. But those winds would also blow us in amazing directions, in places that we would have never expected to go. And the people that we met along the way, our back of our bus had a sticker that said onthegoodroad.com so that people could follow along with what we were doing. We would get calls from people saying, "Hey, I'm right behind you, pull over." They would pull us over, we would get off for the next exit, and they would tell us, we were just reading your blog while we're following behind you, and it's incredible what you're doing, and do you need dinner? Do you want to come stay with us? Do you want to sleep on our couch? And we would stay with people for days sometimes, getting to know them. It was incredible. And other times, the wind would blow us into some of the most beautiful places and the roads that you would never even know that existed. And these small, off-the-grid areas that were incredible, so beautiful. We went all to Colorado and Canada, the Rockies, and all the way up the coast from San Diego to Vancouver and up into Banff and Lake Louise, not that Lake Louise, the other Lake Louise, that's a little more famous maybe. Some of the most incredible views you've ever seen. And then the people that we met running these nonprofits, ministries, and organizations were incredible. LA, we went and visited Homeboy Industries, which worked with men and women coming out of gangs who wanted to run away from them as fast as they could. This organization would help remove face tattoos that were associated with the gangs. They would give them jobs. It was incredible. We met crochet kids who were these young men who went to Kenya to teach these women how to knit crochet hats to sell around the world so that these women didn't have to sell their bodies in order to put food on their kids' tables. It was incredible. And that was 14 years ago, and they're still running, and they're still providing so many jobs. And in Chicago, we met a guy who would just collect bikes and bikes and bikes and bikes and fix them all up and make them look beautiful and then give them to homeless men and women who needed transportation and get to their jobs. There were so many stories. It was incredible, and it was just so encouraging and motivating, all of the things that these people were doing. They had left so much behind in order to pursue these things. When we got back, we started mulling over what we had just experienced, and we saw that there's this one thread that ran through all of it. People risked a lot in order to love people, and it was beautiful. We also realized that there were so many people who opened their doors to us and let us in. We didn't need a gun. We never needed a gun. We never one time needed to defend ourselves. We never were worried about any of that. So many people are great. We now have 2 boys, and we think about adventure for them, and we try to teach them every single day that life is more beautiful when you take a few risks here and there. Live a little bit dangerously, maybe wisely but dangerously at the same time. 16 years ago, my wife and I made a vow to take the road less traveled, and 14 years ago, we took the road less traveled, and that made all the difference. Thanks.